Okay, here's the deal. I was going to talk about the Xbox and Bethesda showcase in my weekly waypoint, which I've already filmed the gameplay for, but there's just too much to talk about, so it's getting its own video. Also, I have a slight cold. I do apologise. I will be talking about everything that stood out to me, no matter how little, but I will be skipping over some games which should not particularly stand out to me because, I mean, you've looked at the length of the video, right? You already know how long this is going to take. So we open on Redfall, and if there has ever been a more obvious poster child for show gameplay, not just CGI cinematics, it's this, because when they announced Redfall, I mean, it was a neat CGI trailer, but I didn't really care. While I thought the theming was good, and I do like vampires in general, I've never actually played a vampire game that I enjoyed, so I was very much like, meh. And also, like, I know you're like, but Christian, it's Arcane! I've also not really gotten into any of Arcane's games. I should do, I need to. I enjoyed what I've played of the first Dishonored game, but I've never properly dug my hooks into them. I have hooks now, apparently. But this is a game I am absolutely going to play. Like, it just looks good. I'm a little bit concerned because it seems like there is a focus on co-op, and for a moment I thought it was yet another, like, Left 4 Dead inspired co-op shooter, but it's not. Like, they mentioned it's playable solo. It seems like more of like a structured campaign with missions where you go and do things. There's no like hordes of 50 or so enemies pressing in on you at all times, so luckily I don't think it's yet another one of those. And yeah, it just looked really cool. I dig it, and obviously I have Xbox Game Pass. Like, nearly every game in this showcase was like, oh, play it day one with Xbox Game Pass, and I'm not here to fucking shill the service or anything, but it makes me far more likely to play those games. Like, outside of a world with Game Pass, I would have watched a trailer for Redfall, gone, huh, that looks neat, and then it would have been like in the very peripheries of my radar, and I probably just would have never bought it, or if I bought it, it would have been after I heard some really good things from other people and it was on sale for like a tenner. With Game Pass, fuck it, it's a game of a week, just dive in and play it, right? So yeah, I'm still not entirely clear on a number of aspects of Redfall's gameplay. Xbox do have another live stream coming up in a couple of days where they're going to go into some more detail on some of these games, so maybe we'll learn some more then, but just first impressions, think it looks solid. Moving on. Silk Song from out of nowhere. Nobody expected it to be in the Xbox conference. I'm gonna be honest, I am mostly putting this in this video because of it surprised me, it got an audible reaction out of me, but I've not finished Hollow Knight. I've played, I don't know how big Hollow Knight is, but I've played like a few hours of Hollow Knight. I've played a decent amount of Hollow Knight, and I have enjoyed it, and I know people are very excited for Silk Song. I just did not expect it to pop up in the Xbox conference. And the fact that it's available on Game Pass did make me go, ooh, but then I was like, wait, I should probably just play Hollow Knight first, right? I'm not going to go and download Silk Song before I've played through Hollow Knight, right? So, but yeah, it's neat. I think that High on Life game from Squanch Games looks pretty interesting. I do enjoy Rick and Morty. I'm not a huge Rick and Morty fan, like, I think I've got maybe 1 or 2 seasons to catch up on, but I do enjoy it. And I think there was a game called Trover Saves the Universe, which I saw some gameplay of, and it looked like a pretty funny game, so I'm excited to check this one out when it comes to Game Pass. I like the idea of a gun that has a face on the, I don't know, safety trigger. I don't know much about guns. A face that looks at you and talks to you the entire time. Does also have a potential to be extremely annoying though. We'll see how it goes. Worst comes to the worst, there's always the uninstall button, I hope. Please don't take that away from me. Next up was the reveal that a bunch of Riot Games, content from Riot Games is coming to Game Pass, and at first I thought that was really cool, and then I realised I don't enjoy any Riot games. I have tried to get into League of Legends before, but MOBAs just are not my cup of tea. I'm also not into card games, I'm not into auto battlers, so the only real thing left is Valorant, and I've not touched Valorant because I heard some pretty toxic things from a friend of mine who did touch Valorant, so I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I was into Overwatch at the time. I was like, why would I go and play this other game? But I am bringing it up because I think it's curious that, like, this is happening. At first I thought Microsoft had fucking bought Riot. I was like, seriously? But actually they didn't announce any acquisitions today. It was more partnership focused, which I think is probably healthier in the long run. I don't think that means they're going to stop buying studios, though. And I don't particularly want them to. Half of me wants them to buy studios, because, you know, Game Pass, but the other half of me is like, oh, monopolization, no. Yeah, I don't know, I might try League of Legends again now that all the champions are unlocked for me on Game Pass. I don't know, if they put some achievements in there, maybe. I'm an achievement whore, you know that already, probably, right? Maybe Not sure. A Plague Tale, I don't really fancy playing a Plague game in a pandemic, sorry. Then came Forza Motorsport with the fancy puddles and the 3D trees, which are very exciting because I don't know if you know this, if you go and play Forza Motorsport 7, pretty sure that game still has 2D trees. Like, they're pretty cardboard cutout looking. Don't get me wrong, Forza Motorsport 7 is a very pretty game, but those trees are weirdly 2007. Not so with Forza Motorsport unnumbered, because that's cool to do, right? What are they going to call Forza Motorsport 9? Forza Motorsport 2? Is it going to have soup in it? Is that the Modern Warfare joke we're doing? I don't. Okay, moving on. It looks very pretty, and they said all the right things. I tend to find with these racing simulation games, or I don't know if anyone's going to get my back about that, with those games like Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsport, then those casual racing simulation games, there you go. It can be very hard to kind of quantify what's new about them with each iteration beyond they look prettier. Like, I think maybe the things that stood out to me most were the damage seems to be a bit more ramped up. I don't know. I'm probably more interested in like how many tracks they have and what the campaign looks like and what their online stuff looks like. Honestly, you know, I haven't played all that much Forza Motorsport 7, so if I want to play it, I should probably just go and play that one. I'm just curious, because this is a new one. Hardcore racing sim fan I am, huh. Then we got Microsoft Flight Sim, yeah, okay, whatever. Then we got Overwatch 2, and boy could I fill an entire video with my thoughts about Overwatch 2. But let's be real, it probably wouldn't be stuff you haven't already heard. Like, is it really a sequel though? And I played this game so much during 2016 and now I don't care about it at all. I mean, I do, but peripherally, there's that word again. They seem to have forgotten that it's not just a multiplayer game for this particular reveal. They mentioned absolutely nothing about a campaign, which is like the main selling point of Overwatch 2, because as we all learned during the recent beta, Overwatch 2 is more just like a decent sized update for Overwatch 1 when it comes to multiplayer. They announced a new hero and showed half of her cinematic? But sure, okay, she seems pretty cool. Overwatch 2 is free to play now, except I'm pretty sure that's just the multiplayer. But then it's also kind of weird that they didn't emphasize that. I have so many questions that I don't even really care to learn the answers to. And to dampen this already exciting announcement, it's early access, so it's like, hey, Overwatch 2 is here, but we're not calling it done. It's a live service game, but we're putting the early access sticker on it, which means that we're not fully confident that it's a final product with updates. It's more that we're still developing the game and we just need to get it out to you early. I'm sorry, I sound cynical, but it's just not something Blizzard have ever done before, and it strikes me as weird. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've done betas. I guess they've done open betas too. The PTR, you could argue, is that, but I don't know. It's like, it's different, it's weird, it's... Next up was a trailer that I was absolutely convinced was just an expansion for Humankind, and then it turned out to be a completely different game which just sounds exactly like Humankind, which uses the same marketing tools and everything, with rewriting human history. That was weird. Pete Hines showed up, and then he announced the Elder Scrolls Online expansion we already knew about, and the Fallout 76 expansion, which I'm pretty sure we already knew about, and then Pete Hines left. Forza Horizon 5 showed up, and the leak about Hot Wheels DLC was correct. At first I was a little bit concerned when I heard this rumour that it would be too similar to the Forza Horizon 3 Hot Wheels DLC, but looking at it, it looks like, you know, while it definitely looks similar because it's still Hot Wheels, you know, we've got new types of Hot Wheels cars, which, dare I say, are some of the more interesting ones compared to the ones we already have in the game. But more importantly, we have magnetic tracks, which are exciting. I'm also hoping that they will include some sort of track creator, which would be pretty damn cool. Forza Horizon 5 has a big focus on letting players create their own gameplay experiences within the game, so it feels like a natural thing to do, but they didn't say anything about it. Maybe we'll learn more in a couple of days. When this rumour surfaced, I saw some people on Reddit being like, they wouldn't do that. There's already a Hot Wheels game out at the minute. They wouldn't want to leech off the success of that. But guys, I don't know if you noticed, but the cars in Hot Wheels Unleashed handle slightly differently to the cars in Forza Horizon 5. They're also made of plastic. Vin Diesel dinosaur game. There was a fever dream in the shape of a game called Scorn, and at first I was like, ew, gross, but the further it went through, the further I was like, or the more, sorry, I was like, you know what? I'm interested in this. There was also another game I've never heard of called Flintlock, which looked like it had some really fun combat. Mojang were rumoured to have a RTS game in the works, and I wasn't all that interested when I heard about that, but when it showed up and I saw it, I was like, oh, this isn't your typical RTS, I'm actually interested in this. They're calling it an action strategy game, and I don't know if there's any of those already out there in the wild, but it seems pretty new to me. So hey, why not give it a go? I still don't foresee myself loving it, but I think there's more of a chance of me enjoying it than there was before. There's a narrative game called As Dusk Falls, which didn't intrigue me to begin with, but the more it went on, the more I was like, yeah, I can see myself trying this one out. It's kind of made of still images, but weirdly the cars are the only thing that actually have full-time movement, but everything else is kind of like painted images which slideshow fade, crossfade around the place, you know? But it seems like an interesting, different way to tell a story. I'm intrigued by Naraka Bladepoint. I've heard some things about it. I know people love that game, but the fact that it's tied to NetEase makes me very, very dubious that it's going to be any kind of solid gameplay experience that doesn't require $110,000 pumped into it to get anywhere. Yes, that was a Diablo Immortal dig. Speaking of Diablo, honestly, the previous few games before this were vaguely interesting to me to the point where I might give them a try within their own times of release windows, depending on what I'm already playing at that particular moment, but I'll probably just vaguely let them pass me by, which is why I'm not bringing them up. I was kind of like hunched over my desk at this point, or not hunched over my desk, that makes me sound weird. I had my hands on my chin, I was kind of disinterested, and then this trailer started up and I was like, oh, this is dark and gory, what is this? And then it was like clearly a necromancer, and I was like, huh, this seems a bit Diablo inspired, and then I remembered what's happening with Activision and I went, wait, is this Diablo? As the trailer went on, I got more and more curious. I was like, wait, I recognize that shade of blue when they were casting spells, and I was like, this seems like on par with the cinematic in-engine stuff that they've already showed us for Diablo 4. And then they said Rathma. See, as it turns out, Necromancer is the fifth and quote-unquote final playable class for Diablo 4, but given what they've said about how they want to give this game lots of expansions and lots of love over the years after it releases, I would be very surprised if it was actually the final class. But the Necromancer in Diablo 3 is one of the most fun classes in that game, so it's very exciting to see that they decided to include it within the base game of Diablo 4. We also saw some more basic gameplay footage of Diablo 4 running on the Series X, and I'm assuming it will look pretty much as pretty on the Series S, which is probably where I'm going to be playing it, to be honest, because my PC, I can see it lagging, not being able to run the game optimally, and I might as well just play it on Xbox because Diablo has famously good controller support, like surprisingly so. They gave us a basic rundown of the game's features and ideas, and we saw some new stuff, like I believe they called them the Paragon boards, so the Paragon system seems to have been greatly iterated on since Diablo 3, which is very exciting to see. Now obviously in a recent Weekly Waypoint I did a big rant about how Diablo Immortal had really shitty pay-to-win mechanics. I can't foresee them being put into Diablo 4, but I do want to point out that they didn't say anything about them not being in Diablo 4, and that is concerning. Now, game director Rod Ferguson put out a tweet like 10 minutes ago, where did I put this tweet? Saying, to be clear, Diablo 4 is a full-price game built for PC, PlayStation, Xbox audiences. We are committed to delivering an incredible breadth of content after launch for years to come, anchored around optional cosmetic items and full story-driven expansions. More details soon. And a week or two ago, before Diablo Immortal launched, I would have trusted that tweet at face value, but we're now living in a world where the game director for Diablo Immortal stated that you wouldn't be able to pay to earn gear, and omitted the fact that gems aren't gear, and that's primarily where your power comes from, and that's primarily something you need to pay to get. It's sad that we have to dig through Blizzard developer words with a scalpel these days, but hey, here we are. Now, if I'm being perfectly truthful, I don't really believe that there's going to be payable power in Diablo 4. I think the reason that it's there in Diablo Immortal is because it was frankly mostly developed by NetEase, and it's a mobile game and they think they can get away with it, but I do also want to put it out there that it was the Blizzard developers who okayed it in the end and put it in the game and are making money off of it. So who knows, anything's possible, I guess. Isn't that great? Sea of Thieves now lets you name your ships, and the only reason it's important that I bring this up is because they named their ship Booty McBootface. Solid reference. Actually, I'm going to be honest, that update looks pretty good. Like, it doesn't just let you name your ships, it lets you save them, which weirdly enough is a thing that isn't available yet. But the next update lets you save your ships, customize them with loot that you've earned around the place. Honestly seems like kind of a fundamental important update to the game, which is really going to help it. I don't really play a whole lot of Sea of Thieves, but I have played some Sea of Thieves before with Reese and Molly, and we had a good time. This doesn't necessarily bring me back, but it does make me hopeful for the next time that I do play the game, and this is already be in it. I really loved the art style of Ravenlock, which was one of the last indie games featured in this presentation. And then there was a game called Cocoon, and that game is trippy as hell. It's made by the guy who did Limbo and Inside, so I was fully expecting it to be a 2D black and white side-scrolling morbid game, and I think maybe the whole point of this game is that it is everything but that. Not only do we have walking through 3D planes, but we have spheres within spheres, and zooming in and out of them, making me feel very queasy indeed. Then Phil Spencer came out, and suddenly anything was possible. Ooh. Yeah, we stan. We stan. Who are you if you don't stan Phil Spencer? Get out of my chat. All corporations and CEOs are evil, except for Phil Spencer, because he just seems like a nice guy. That's how my morals go, don't question it. Anyway, Persona's coming to Game Pass, namely Persona 3, 4 and 5, and it seems like Persona 5 is coming before Persona 3 and 4, which kind of eases up the question of me going, hey, which one do I play first? I guess you want me to play Persona 5 first, that's fine. If I know my JRPGs, then Persona 3 and 4 and 5 are probably completely different continuities that have nothing to do with each other, so that's perfectly fine. I am slightly concerned that if I play Persona 5 first, it's going to be hard to adapt to the older games with their older design philosophies, you know, like how if you played Skyrim as your first Elder Scrolls game, it's really hard to go back and play Morrowind, that kind of thing. If I'm honest, there's nothing truly about the story or what I saw in those trailers that grabbed me and made me go, oh wow, Persona 5 looks like a really fun game. But the pedigree this game has behind it and the amount of people who love this game, you know, I'll try it. Then they announced that they've got Kojima, and I'm one of the cynics regarding Kojima, so if you're a Kojima stan, I regret to inform you I'm about to upset you. Now, it's probably slightly biased because I've never been interested in any of the games Kojima's done. Metal Gear Solid doesn't appeal to my personal tastes as far as story and aesthetic and world goes, and Death Stranding as a follow-up kind of felt like art porn, if you know what I mean. Like, ooh, he's so deep and interesting, and he's a genius with his creative ideas that no one else has thought of. No, he's just being weird for the sake of being weird, and from what I can tell, he's got a fairly big ego too, so I'm not a huge fan of Kojima, so this particular announcement did not ring true with me, and it really was just a we've got Kojima announcement. Like, he didn't announce a game, he said he's working on a game which will utilize Xbox's cloud infrastructure. And do you remember when Crackdown 3 was meant to utilize Xbox's cloud infrastructure? That's all I'm saying. Hey, speaking of cloud, we didn't get anything regarding Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's kind of a bummer. That rumor was wrong. Anyway, it's time for the Starfield of the show. That's right, we got Todd Howard up, and he told us about Starfield, and I was grinning ear to ear the entire time. Now, try to remember that one of my favourite video games of all time is Skyrim, and I have been obviously anticipating Elder Scrolls 6, which is probably still a decade away, let's be real. But even before Starfield first came out of Todd Howard's mouth, I have been saying, wouldn't it be interesting if we got Skyrim in space, you know, that kind of a game, because Fallout was always their sci-fi version of their Skyrim style of gameplay, and I don't tend to like Fallout that much. I have tried to get into it a few times. I think I could probably get into it now, but when I was younger, definitely I was like, oh, post-apocalyptic wastelands? Bleh, boring, beige, get out of here. I can't tell you how many times I've played through the intro to Fallout 3, gotten out of the vault, and then just gone, meh. But no, Skyrim in space, that's what it's all about, baby, and it looks so fucking good though. I'm excited because going to space enables Bethesda's art teams to think fantastically again, make environments which are alien. I mean, I say that, obviously we're going to space, but like, Morrowind was a very alien environment, right, in the Elder Scrolls series. One of the best parts about Skyrim's visual style was its night sky, its dark vistas, and now we're having entire planets of different biomes that could be anything, and it just looks super neat. Okay, cool. Art is subjective, but I'm objectively right about this, don't at me. The scene where you first land on the moon, what was it called? Crete, the moon of Ansalon. I was grinning ear to ear because, first of all, I love me some moon setting, okay? I love games set on the moon or a moon, and this looks like a familiar moon with some alien flora around, and it looks so good. And that moment where he's walking down the hill felt very much like that moment when you finish the Unbound questline in Skyrim and you're leaving the dungeon and you're kind of looking at the environment around you, and it looks super pretty in 2011 and just kind of okay in 2022. No, I'm being mean. Skyrim still holds up. Special Edition's lighting really does help it. The faces, not so much, but the environment's pretty, okay? Humans actually look like humans in Starfield instead of just kind of loose crisp packets that float around and yell at you, so that's a nice change. I stole that crisp packet joke from someone long ago and I no longer remember who first said it, so let's just pretend it's an original joke by me, yeah? I'm really funny. The gunplay, okay, my one concern with this game, the gunplay looked fine, not particularly enthralling, but the AI in combat seemed a bit unfinished. Like, there were moments where they were being shot at and they were just kind of like running slightly away or not fully engaging with you, and it stood out. Hopefully that's something they've got ironed out by release, or something they've already ironed out, because usually vertical slices of gameplay are like a year old, if I remember the article I read about this correctly. But yeah, there's like these city hubs that you can go to. They showed off all the different factions, and I smiled when they revealed that you could join the faction of pirates which you're fighting against at the start of the game, because of course you can. It wouldn't be a Bethesda game if you couldn't, right? They have customizable ships, and they have space flight, and ooh, baby, this game's starting to open up, right? This is the first real big new territory step for Bethesda in a game. They've done gunfighting before, they've done open world exploration before. As far as I'm aware, they've never done spaceship combat, and it looks fine. I don't really have any strong opinions about it. I'm not huge into space combat. I enjoy No Man's Sky's space combat, and if it meets that criteria, then we're good. And it looks like it does. It's simple enough, and you shoot things and they go boom. I do like that because of a customizable ship, there are different parts to the ship where you can upgrade the weapon systems and stuff like that, so that's going to add some variance to it. I was about to say No Man's Sky doesn't have it, but No Man's Sky does indeed have that. It's just not something I've tinkered all that much with. Oh, I forgot to mention the home bases you can build on different planets and stuff, and your ship is kind of a home base and you can recruit crew for it, and oh my god, the most exciting thing, the big hook at the end of a presentation, was when he was like, okay, we should show you how big this is, and he showed you the planet you land on, and then he zoomed out and showed you the solar system of a few planets. I was like, oh, that's really cool, you know, like, I can see them, because they mentioned you can explore the entire planets, right? Like, you can explore all over all of these planets. I was like, that's a lot of ground to cover. This isn't a game that needs to have millions and millions and millions of procedurally generated planets. This is a game that needs to have a nice scattering of planets with different biomes and stuff that's been handcrafted by the Bethesda art team. But then he zoomed out again, and there was something like 100 different star systems to explore, and that's got everyone's questions going. My hype meter went through the roof, because while I'm sure there will be procedurally generated elements to these planets, I don't think, the impression I get is that they will not be randomly generated when you create your save file or anything like that. My impression is that while they will have procedurally generated these planets to create them all, they'd still like have time to go back, airbrush some stuff, I guess, change some things, add some side missions to these planets, kind of Mass Effect style, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't design the entirety of every planet in Mass Effect hand by hand, right? That's how that sentence works. Like, there are clearly some that have more attention than others. You'd hope that, although I've only really played Mass Effect 1 to completion, you'd hope that the planets are a little bit more detailed than some of the Mass Effect planets, which were more side gigs, but still, I kind of feel like that's what they're going for, less the whole randomly generated as you play thing. Honestly, like, if they just have a handful of planets that they've put as much work into designing as they did with the open worlds of, like, Skyrim and Fallout 4 and stuff, and then the rest of it's just procedurally generated, the rest of it's a bonus. It's fine. They've already shown us stuff of hand-designed parts of this world, and it looks fantastic, and I'm just so excited to go and play it. I think there's a lot of room for Starfield to go wrong, but dare I say it, I also think that it's not gonna be any worse received than Fallout 4, which was a pretty decent game. You'll have some people telling you that Fallout 4 is not as good as Fallout 3, that it has some failures to it, but base set, most people like Fallout 4, right? And I kind of feel like, based on what we've seen, I don't know, Starfield seems like it would fit that bill. Obviously, I didn't really care about Cyberpunk 2077, so I haven't been burned before, so everyone who has been is probably yelling at their screens right now, but listen, I hate the saying of expect the worst and you can never be disappointed, because from my point of view, expect the worst and you're constantly already in that state of expecting things to be shit. You are constantly living the disappointment part, which you are trying to escape, flying high only on the few surprises of things being surprisingly not as shit as I expected. I'm fine with living in hope and then being disappointed by something. It's not the end of the world if a game doesn't turn out as well as you would like it to. At the end of the day, I would rather be excited for this game and then just be like, oh, if it's not as good as I expected, that's a shame. I've got plenty of other games to play and look forward to. So while I'm not like 100% expecting Starfield to be a 10 out of 10, I do have high hopes for it. I think it's had a good showing. I think it looks like it's going to be a brilliant game and I'm excited to play it. But that's going to do it from me. That's the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, and I skipped over a whole bunch of extra games which were not featured in this video. I just said the same thing twice. Clearly I need to go and have a lie down while I render this video, so thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next one, which will probably be the weekly waypoint, where I'll talk about everything except the Xbox Bethesda showcase. How about that? Oh, and if you like this video, feel free to give it a like. If you feel like it, leave a comment letting me know how you thought about things, how wrong all of my opinions are, but maybe phrase it slightly nicer than that.